I believe color is one of the most important things about painting, and especially abstract painting. Together with composition, I feel like they really make a base for a good painting that sells, that speaks, that has meaning and story behind it, since it's two main elements that even create an impression on the viewer. Today I want to mainly focus on color palette and how to bring color palette further, how to create a sophisticated color palette. This video, in a way, is a continuation of the other video I did, which called Want Impact, Fix Your Colors. I will link it in the description box down below, so make sure to check it out if you want to see how this painting that I'm going to be showing you today has started and what was the initial color palette and inspiration behind it. In the last video, I started this painting and I really wanted to challenge myself a little bit with a different color palette that I usually use. Green and pink is not my first choice, it's not my go-to palette, but it was spring, it was like so many things happening, just gave birth to the baby, everything was blooming, so I really wanted to create something that would associate with growth and new beginnings, and green and pink both, because we had the city was blooming with flowers, all of the pink flowers. We have even like a cherry blossom festival going on here in town every year, so everything was blooming and so beautiful, and I felt like it represented the idea of growth so well. And together with green shades, it creates a sophisticated complementary color palette. So that was my initial inspiration for this piece as I started, and also just based on everything I've seen with the paintings I created before and what speaks to people, what collectors like, I found out that those green shades with like some yellow, some blue mixed somewhere in them, of course balanced with neutrals, they do appeal to a wider audience. I don't know, there's just something that fits so well into the like most interiors, when I guess because it's just something really organic to our eyes. Like, we love nature, we love plants. A lot of people have like plants and wooden elements in their houses and apartments, so I feel like this color palette just perfectly fits into interior space and it complements it in the best way possible. It's the most organic choice, and it's just easier to fit in most places. So as I noticed that, I was really just looking at a lot of interior inspiration and trying to understand like how can I bring all of this knowledge further, how can I create more paintings that collectors would love, that would like really belong in the spaces and not just be my initial like emotional response to what colors I personally like. And honestly speaking, I do like color and all of the colors. I just not practice maybe in my art like equally all different color palettes. Like, I have my favorites that I go to more easily, but I feel like it's good for artists to see where the market is, what collectors need, what people decorate their homes with, and really take it also as a starting point, or at least add it to your practice, this knowledge that it's not only about what you like. But I do like color, I like all of the colors, and it's good to challenge yourself and to work with color palettes that maybe not your favorites, maybe challenging for you. So that was the initial idea, and that's how I started. But then I ran into a problem, or just like a middle stage of the color story development, where I was like, okay, I like those shades of green and I want to complement it with pink, but it was just like not really working, or it felt like really decorative. It felt a bit on the surface and flat and a bit cotton candy, just like too pastel of a colors. And I knew I need to bring this color palette further and add more depth and layers. And with both elements of art, composition and color, I feel like it's really important to think in terms of layers and work in layers, and to understand that like your initial start gives you a good perspective of like where you want to go with a color or composition, but then you have to develop it in layers. You couldn't just like set yourself for success from the beginning. I mean, in some way you do, you want to have a strong beginning, but then strong beginning doesn't necessarily promises you like the strong outcome. So you have to keep on building the color story in layers, and I want to talk today and show you practically what I did to this painting. Many of you have been asking to see how this painting progresses in the previous video and how we're going to take it further. So this video is exactly about that, and you're gonna see what I did to this painting to bring it one level up. But before we dive into it, hey, my name is Esther Franchuk. I'm an abstract artist, a painter, and I make videos about life of my studio, my creative journey, my process, stories behind my paintings, and so much more. So make sure to subscribe to not miss any of the new videos. Either this one or this one. What do you think? I feel like this fits with the color story a bit more because it's a lot of like light greens and yellows. But here, like the sky, like it's the same blue like this dress. So this might also work. No?
Yeah, actually.
They both.
Maybe even the blue one. Initially, I would have said
this one.
The other one, yeah.
But blue, maybe even better, more contrast.
Blue could be better.
So since starting with making more YouTube content, I'm really obsessed with thrifting, because if I love dresses and I love like dressing up, especially for photo shoot, for paintings, for product shots, and for YouTube videos lately, matching the painting. Yeah, so it's kind of like really important for me, like the visual aesthetic. So, and if I would like buy new dresses all of the time, I would get broke. I would just spend everything I make, all of the money I make with my art, just back into making content and making art. And I already spent enough in the art supply store. So I really loved thrifting dresses, and yeah, it just something that really helps keeping content fresh and having nice shots without hurting the budget. So we're gonna go with the blue one. Isn't this great for something I thrifted for like $7, pretty much? It's 100% linen and it's super beautiful color, and it's really nice contrast with this painting. So yeah, gonna go with this one today. So since the last painting session that I was filming, a lot of things change. I'm also not pregnant anymore, if you noticed. If you watched the previous video, I started too many new paintings that week, and we were filming and pre-producing a lot of content, and you will see more of my pregnant videos probably still coming up soon, because we just filmed so much. And so don't be confused, not pregnant anymore, but just have a lot more content to share. But since then I have been able to work a lot on this painting, and it's barely like showing any of the initial colors that I put there, even though the color palette is still the same. So it was more like those greens, so a bit more flat, like just pastel, and a bit more, I would say, on the decorative side. So I like the beginning, I like the feeling that it was giving me. It was kind of like forming into landscape, and I tried to navigate the composition, also responding to the landscape feeling of it as well. And then all of the greens were really fitting in, but I knew it had to evolve with a lot more darks and neutrals. So I actually, because I did take almost like 1 month of a break because I gave birth and this first weeks with the baby. So once I was back into the studio, I had basically just a couple days that I was back to work, and I was able to bring this painting a lot further. And it was actually really productive sessions, because I would just be fully in my flow and don't stop or make breaks. I would just like paint like crazy, and I did make a lot of progress since then in those like maybe 3 days that I was working on this painting. I'm not always that efficient, by the way. It really depends on the situation and on the piece and on the season. It's like life happens, so sometimes you would have a month's break in between. Sometimes you just have to like observe and think of the painting, and like really sometimes I have like a whole thought process until I actually touch the canvas and make improvements to it. But anyway, it went through quite some changes, and as you can see, I added a lot more shades of color while still maintaining the initial color palette that I wanted to, which is green and pink. And I also worked breaking down each color that is dominant here into different shades. So I have multiple shades of pink going on, and it's not the final result. Also, it's still like really busy and many things have to change. and also lots of different shades of green. I introduced more olive greens in here and some ochre, which really gave it more sophisticated feeling that the initial color. So I feel like just creating a whole variety of shades within each color is what will really, in this mid stage, push your painting even further. If you don't do so much color mixing and you just go for like straight out of the tube couple basic colors, it will end up decorative. And unless your goal is really going decorative, because there is a whole market for decorative art, and like it could serve the goal or it could not serve you, but it really depends of like your personal style and aesthetic and what you're trying to do. I really believe that good sophisticated art, it has to be layered. And if you want this like three-dimensional feeling, which I personally like and what is appealing to me, when I look at art, I like when my eye traveling, and also when I can see depth, when there's like multiple layers and things are integrated and they're working with each other. So I wanted the color also to integrate and correspond to one another. That's why I like creating a whole range of shades within each family of colors that I'm using. And as you see, I also added a bit more of the neutrals. I went with a really bright blue here, and then I also introduced a little bit more shades in between, and then I added grays to the blue here and there to ground the piece a bit more, and also introduced a little bit of other like supporting colors, just like additional colors like this purple. And then because this green also transitions into the ochre and it has some yellows here and there, the purple complements all of the yellows, so it's like kind of a secondary color palette that is introduced here. That also gives it a bit more interest, I believe, along with all of the other mark making and texture and everything else that I put into this piece. So as you can see, the color palette isn't static. It's not like you decide on it and you went with a color combination that works and it just clicks and it's perfect and it carries through. It's really not static, it evolves, and you have to work through the stages and through the layers. And as you work and like go deeper with particular painting, you would see like where it needs some quiet areas, like a resting space, where it needs more contrast, and where it needs just a little bit more of a tension in between different colors, so it creates a conversation. And those are just some of the topics that I go really in depth in my course, Confident Abstract. It's launched finally, it's available now. I am super excited and pumped to share it with everyone who wants to learn from me and my process. It's packed with exercises on composition and color story, and also it has my whole process from beginning to an end, to even naming and framing of the pieces. I work on 3 pieces, nothing is time-lapse or sped up. It's also different paintings, like different format, different compositional principles that I apply to them, different color stories that I choose. I walk you through the whole process of how I make decisions, moving through different stages, how I overcome creative blocks, how I solve exactly those issues with creating contrast, creating tension, seeing if the color story is sophisticated. Sometimes I have to change color story midway, and this is also fine, and I just go so much in depth of how my process looks like and how do I manage making all of these decisions when I don't know which decisions to make. I feel like it's so valuable just to see another artist working through all of the struggles and overcoming obstacles, and it's almost like the best way to learn when you don't know how to approach your painting and like how to get through all of this creative blocks, just to see someone else do it and just see how they manage it and what helps them. So even though I was hesitant to sharing my whole process so in depth, because I do have questions in between, because I don't know, I don't have it all figured out, and every painting, especially since I moved to abstract art, it's a journey of figuring it all out in the process and really making decision after decision and not knowing the final result, not knowing in which way exactly it's gonna end up, how it's gonna look like. And it felt really vulnerable sharing all of this those in between moments, because there is much of an ugly stage, there is much of not knowing what I'm doing. And that's exactly why I believe this course gives so much value. So if you're interested in creating abstract painting with confidence, abstract that feel fully intuitive and full of freedom, yet they build on a strong foundation, make sure to check the link in the description box down below to the course Confident Abstract, where you can find all of the information about it. And again, color is just one of the elements of art and one of the aspects that make painting sophisticated. Of course, there's so much more to it, but through color, of course, you can really set up the mood. It speaks to people, it appeals to them. Certain color palettes will create certain emotional impressions and affect the mood, affect the atmosphere of the room. So you have to think of color and you have to think of making it sophisticated. I'm gonna still keep working on this piece. It's, I would say, halfway done, but there is so much more that has to be happening here until I'm like fully satisfied with it. I would say it's a middle stage, and hopefully the next video will have a final result and you will see how this painting evolved. But for now, I feel like this creates, with both contrast and mark making and some imagery, really interesting focal point here with the sun. And I like the contrast in color and in the scale, and just other parts have to still submit to it, and I feel like it's still needing more resting space and neutral. So you will see how even one step further gonna look like, hopefully in the next video about it. And for now, let me know if you have questions about this video, my process, or my abstract course. I love reading all of your guys' messages, and it really helps me to better my channel and create content that you love and that is helpful. Once again, if you like this video, make sure to subscribe and give it a thumbs up so you will not miss any of the upcoming videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next week.
How does it feel to be a free birdie in the studio while your nanny is taking care of the child and the dog? Not to say I don't have a guilt that I'm working already, but I actually spent already 2 days last week just going to the studio for a couple of hours and just being here alone and just painting, and I never was so efficient in my life. I feel like every time before I went to the studio, like no matter how busy, no matter what is the agenda, I would be like, oh, let's get a coffee, let's go like get some art supplies on the way. We have the only art supply store in town, pretty much like next door to my studio. So every time I want to be productive and there is something that is missing in the studio, even though nothing is really missing because I have a lot of stuff, I just procrastinate a lot by just shopping art supplies or getting coffee or wherever. So with the baby, for this like last couple of weeks that we already had with her, I feel like we just got, both of us, me and Paul, such a strong understanding of value of time and how much could be done in a really short chunks of time. So it's like you actually finally, I mean, talking about myself, I don't know for everyone, I feel like I'm more intentional than ever, because when I get to the studio, I know I have a couple hours in between like breastfeeding and baby actually needing me, and before getting my own anxieties and I'm not at home, to get the work done. And I never worked with so much efficiency in my life before.